Ever noticed how some people vanish and yet they're still everywhere? That's the paradox of true presence. You're no longer in contact, but she still feels your energy not because you're chasing, but because you've grown into a man whose silence speaks volumes. And today we're going to unpack exactly why this happens, the psychology behind it, the emotional ripple effect, and how without saying a single word, your silent presence starts to haunt her thoughts in a way that noisy attention never could, because when a man learns to let go without losing himself, when he embraces stillness, self-respect, and inner power, he becomes unforgettable even without contact. Let's dive in. Number one, the echo of absence. She doesn't hear from you, but she feels the silence. It's not empty. It's intentional. Like a true Stoic, you've mastered the art of being present without noise. Your absence now echoes louder than your words ever did, because when you were there, always available, always responding, your presence was taken for granted like background. She never really noticed until it stopped playing, but now the silence rings in her ears. It follows her into the quiet moments when she's scrolling through her phone, when a song reminds her of you, when someone mentions your name casually, and she freezes for a second. That's the echo, and it doesn't just speak of you being gone, it speaks of the man you've become since leaving, a man who doesn't explain his worth, a man who doesn't beg to be understood, a man who walks away not in anger but in stillness. That's the Stoic way, releasing the need to control how others perceive you and choosing instead to focus on what you can control: your mind, your discipline, your peace. See, absence isn't always about distance, it's about energy, and you've withdrawn yours. Not to punish her, but to protect yourself. And without that constant flow of your presence, your reassurance, your attention, the emotional silence grows loud. She starts to wonder, was I wrong? Not because you told her, but because you stopped trying to prove anything. And that's when the echo hits hardest. Because silence from a man who once gave everything isn't just quiet, it's powerful, it's haunting, it's unforgettable. So if you're sitting there wondering whether your distance matters, trust me, it does. She may never admit it out loud, but she hears it, she feels it. And if she had ever doubted your impact, your absence just gave her the answer. So before we move on, take a moment to sit with that truth. Sometimes the loudest message you'll ever send is the one wrapped in silence, the kind that doesn't chase, doesn't plead, doesn't explain, but simply is. That's what Stoic presence looks like. It doesn't need permission to be felt. Now I want to hear from you. Has your silence ever spoken louder than your words? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Or if this part resonated, just leave the words. She hears the silence. Let's keep the conversation going. Number two, the power shift: no texts, no calls. Yet something's changed. The power shift: she can feel the energy shift. You're no longer orbiting her. That detachment, rooted in Stoic self-discipline, creates gravity of its own. You're not gone, you're just centered. And that, my friend, is where the shift truly begins. Not in your words, but in your energy. You see, a man who once waited, explained, and hoped, now moves in silence, not out of bitterness, but from a deeper understanding of himself. Your focus has returned home. You're not chasing closure or validation. You're living with intention, not reaction. That alone redefines the dynamic. Suddenly, it's not her world with you trying to find a place in it. Now it's your world, and she senses she's no longer the center of it. This is the paradox. By pulling back, you pull power inward. That silence, it's not absence, it's presence without dependency. That's what the Stoics teach us. Epictetus said, "Freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control." You've stopped trying to control her emotions or her attention. You've mastered yours, and let's be real. She notices even if she pretends not to, even if she acts like she doesn't care, because energy doesn't lie. When a man detaches, not to punish, but to protect his peace, the entire dynamic shifts. Think about it. When you used to reach out, she knew exactly where you stood. But now she's left wondering. That mystery, that silence, it weighs heavier than words ever could. So yes, the power shift has happened, but not because you fought for it. You became it. You stopped being the man who reacts and started being the man who chooses where he invests, how he moves, and who gets access. That kind of strength doesn't chase love, it inspires respect. Number three, emotional residue. Every man leaves a trace, but a Stoic man. Emotional residue leaves impact. She feels your calmness in moments of her own chaos. You became her stability, and even without you around, she feels the contrast deeply. That's the thing about emotional residue. It lingers, it shows up when she's lying in bed after a long day, wondering why the noise around her doesn't quiet the storm inside. It's in the way she catches herself comparing the men she meets to your presence, your grounded energy, your restraint, your discipline. Not because you were perfect, but because you were centered and that left a mark. See most men react, you reflected most. Chased, you chose stillness. That's what Stoicism teaches us, not to suppress emotion, but to master it, to be the calm. Not after the storm, but during it. And when a woman experiences that kind of steady energy, it creates an emotional imprint that doesn't fade with distance or time. It lingers in her mind the way a familiar scent can pull you back to a memory you thought you'd buried. She might not say it. She might even pretend she's over it. But emotional residue doesn't care about words. It lives in the silence, in the things she doesn't post, in the glances that linger longer than they should. It's the emotional fingerprints you left on her reality when you stopped trying to impress and simply embodied presence. And now she feels your absence like a weight, not because you left with drama, but because you exited with dignity, and that kind of departure. It leaves echoes. Have you ever noticed how peace leaves a bigger void than chaos? That's what she's feeling now. You didn't just walk away. You took something with you, something she didn't realize. She'd gotten used to your emotional strength, your silence, your sense of self. That's what emotional residue really is. Not neediness, not manipulation, but a reminder of what real presence feels like. And that's why she'll keep remembering you, especially when everything else starts to feel loud, unstable, and temporary. Because deep down, she knows you weren't just a phase. You were the anchor number 4, the unread message. You're not watching her stories. The unread message. You're not reacting. And ironically, that unread message hits harder than a dozen replies, because a man who doesn't need to respond radiates strength she didn't expect. And here's what really stings: your silence says everything she didn't want to hear. It says, I've moved beyond needing your attention to validate my worth. That unread message sits there like a mirror, forcing her to face a version of you she no longer has access to. Not because you're being cold, but because you've chosen clarity over confusion, peace over performance. Think about it: when a man sees a message and doesn't flinch, doesn't feel the urge to explain himself or feed the emotional loop. That's not indifference, that's discipline. Stoicism teaches us that the power lies not in reaction, but in restraint. Epictetus once said, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. And in this case, your reaction is no reaction at all. That's power. Maybe she expected you to double tap her photo to respond within seconds, to reassure her that you're still emotionally available, but what she didn't expect was your peace, your distance, your control. That message she sent wasn't just text. It was a test, and you passed not by playing the game, but by choosing to rise above it. So let it sit there. Let it stay unread. Because in that unread bubble, she feels your presence louder than if you had written back paragraphs. You've mastered something rare, emotional sovereignty, and that, my friend, is unforgettable. And this is where I want you to pause and really think. How many times have you given your energy to a moment that didn't deserve it? That unread message isn't just about her. It's a symbol of who you've become. A man who no longer trades his peace for temporary validation. That's a rare kind of strength in today's world. So I want to hear from you. Have you ever been in a situation where silence said more than words ever could? Drop your story in the comments, or just leave this phrase if it resonated with you: my silence is my strength. Let's see how many of you are walking that path. Now let's move forward, because this mindset, it doesn't stop here. Number 5, you moved without. You moved without noise. Noise, your growth isn't for show, it's for self. She sees it in how others talk about you, in your online calm, in your elevated presence. Stoicism teaches that real power is revealed, not announced. And that's what she feels. You didn't need to post quotes or declare a comeback. You didn't need to tell the world you were healing or improving. You simply got to work quietly. You sharpened your mind, trained, your body guarded your energy. And now she notices, even if she won't say it out loud, she senses it in your silence, in your steadiness, in the way you no longer orbit her world. You used to react, now you observe. You used to reach, now you reflect. And this shift, it rattles something in her, because the man who once sought validation is now completely indifferent to it. You've become a man with internal standards, not external needs. A man who walks with clarity, not confusion. When Marcus Aurelius said, waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. This is what he meant. No debates, no drama, just action aligned with values. Let me give you an example. Imagine she's scrolling through your profile, half expecting the same old patterns. A sad lyric, a vague quote, a picture meant to spark her attention, but instead, nothing, just stillness. And that stillness says more than any caption could. It's unsettling in the most powerful way. She's left wondering what changed and why her presence no longer pulls you in like it used to. See, you moved without noise. And that's exactly why it echoes so loudly now. You didn't just grow, you disappeared into growth. And when you resurface, you don't need to say a word. Your presence, your peace says everything. Number 6, the mystery. The mystery returns. She used to know your every move. Now she wonders your silence isn't a strategy, it's a reflection of deeper purpose. You're not playing hard to get, you're simply no longer available for surface level connection. That version of you, the one who answered right away, who explained everything, who wore his heart like an open book, he's gone not out of spite, but out of evolution, as the Stoics taught, especially men like Epictetus and Marcus Aurelius. Real strength lies in self-restraint, in living by inner principles rather than reacting to external validation. And you've started living that. You're not making noise. You're moving with calm, directed energy. You don't announce your progress. You live it, and that quiet shift in you, it doesn't go unnoticed. Suddenly, she's replaying old conversations, checking if you viewed her story, wondering why you haven't reached out, why you're not trying to prove anything you see. When a man who once poured his attention into someone suddenly pulls that attention inward, when he chooses clarity over chaos, purpose over performance, it creates a mystery that no explanation can satisfy. She thought she had you figured out, but now you've become what few men ever dare to be: unpredictable in your peace, elusive in your discipline, present in your own world, not orbiting hers. And that's the paradox. Your absence now holds more presence than your words ever did. The mystery doesn't come from pretending, it comes from becoming. And when a man becomes grounded, when he sheds the need to be understood or liked, when he embraces the stoic calm over the emotional storm, he naturally draws attention without asking for it. So if you're watching this right now and you feel that shift inside, you stay with it. Let your silence speak. Let your growth confuse. Let your calm unsettle, because mystery isn't about being hidden. It's about being so centered that no one can quite read you. Her mind fills in the gaps anymore. Number 7, her mind fills in the gaps without updates from you. She begins imagining, wondering what you're doing, who you're becoming in your silence. Her mind creates stories, and often those stories hit harder than truth. That's the psychological weight of self-restraint. You see, when a man chooses silence, not as a tactic, but as a reflection of inner strength, he stops feeding the noise, and in that stillness, something interesting happens. She starts hearing echoes that were never spoken. That's the thing. When you pull back, when you stop broadcasting your life, when your presence becomes rare, her imagination takes over. An imagination fueled by uncertainty and emotion is powerful. She sees your name pop up online, maybe for a second, and suddenly her thoughts spiral. Is he seeing someone? Why doesn't he reach out? How is he so calm while I feel this unsettled? Your absence becomes a canvas. Her mind can't help but paint on. This is where Stoicism comes in. The Stoic man understands that not everything requires expression. You don't owe the world your every move, and you especially don't owe her updates just to soothe her anxiety. The discipline to hold your silence, to move with intention, and to live without needing to be seen. That's where the real power lives. As Epictetus would say, we have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so that we can listen twice as much as we speak. In your case, it's about listening to your inner world more than seeking validation from the outer one. She starts noticing the shift, the version of you who used to explain himself, who used to chase closure or clarity. That version is gone. Now she's left with blank spaces. And ironically, it's in those blank spaces that the weight of your growth hits hardest. You've become a mystery again, not because you're hiding, but because you're rising. And here's what you need to remember. When a man becomes silent, grounded, and centered, the impact isn't immediate, it's delayed. But when it lands, it shakes something inside her. Not just curiosity, but realization. Because while she's filling in the gaps with stories, you're busy filling your life with purpose. So take a moment to really think about that. While she's busy creating narratives in her mind, you're out there creating reality. That's the quiet power of the Stoic path. It doesn't announce itself, but it transforms everything it touches. You've stepped into a space where your silence speaks more than your words ever could. And that shift, it doesn't just affect her, it elevates you. Now I want to hear your thoughts. How do you relate to the idea of becoming the mystery? Again, drop your insights in the comments. or just leave this simple sentence. If it resonates, my presence speaks through absence. Let's move on to the next point. Number 8. You took the calm. You took the calm with you when you left. So did the emotional anchor. She feels the difference, not because you were loud, but because your peace once softened her storms. Stoicism isn't about being cold, it's about being the stillness others feel when they're shaken, and you were that stillness. The quiet strength in the room, the one who didn't need to raise his voice to bring comfort. You were the steady presence that made her feel safe, even if she didn't fully recognize it at the time. Now that you're no longer there, the contrast is undeniable. The chaos she used to bring into the relationship now has nothing to lean on, no calm to absorb it. And that's the thing about a stoic man. Your absence is never just silence. It's a missing center of gravity. Your detachment wasn't coldness, it was composure. You weren't trying to fix her storms, you simply didn't let them shake you. Think about it when the noise stops. People start to hear the echoes. She hears them now in her overthinking, in the quiet moments at night when things feel heavier without you. Your calm wasn't just something she witnessed. It was something she borrowed, and now it's gone. And she realizes that your presence wasn't about control or attention, it was about stability, inner peace. And the more she searches for that energy elsewhere, the more she understands it wasn't the world that changed, it was you, because while she's unraveling, you're not bitter. You're not reactive, you're not stalking her stories or sending paragraphs. You're simply still focused calm. And ironically, that calm, your calm, is what now haunts her. The very thing she took for granted is now the thing she can't recreate. That's the quiet power of Stoicism. You didn't just walk away, you took the emotional gravity with you. And now she's floating in a space that once felt grounded. Not because of noise, not because of words, but because of the calm you carried and the man you chose to become. Your absence reframes the past. Number 9. Your absence reframes the past. The space you've created forces her to revisit old moments with new eyes. Your composure, your patience, your quiet strength, it all stands out now. Stoic men age well in memory because their actions were grounded, not reactive. And that's the thing. When you're no longer present to defend yourself, to explain, or to remind her of your worth, she's left alone with the truth she once overlooked in the beginning. Emotions, cloud judgment, she might have seen your stillness as indifference, your self-control as coldness, your lack of drama as disinterest, but time has a way of stripping illusions. Now in your absence, she starts to understand that what she thought was distance was actually depth. The calm you carried wasn't detachment, it was emotional maturity. You weren't avoiding conflict, you were avoiding chaos. She remembers now how you didn't argue when others would have, how you listened without interrupting, how you stayed solid when she pushed that stability. She took for granted it echoes louder now that you're gone. It reframes everything. The fights don't look the same in hindsight. The breakup doesn't feel so justified. Your silence now plays like a mirror, showing her how much noise she brought to something that was meant to be peaceful. And here's where Stoicism slips in, not as a tactic, but as a truth. You lived. You didn't need to win every conversation. You didn't crave to be right. You simply stayed centered, and that grounded energy, though unappreciated in the moment, now grows more valuable in her memory. Because when chaos fades, peace is what we miss the most. You're not rewriting the past, you're not reaching out to retell the story, but your absence. It's doing the editing for you. And every quiet day that passes, it turns your restraint into clarity and your strength into something unforgettable. Number 10. The unspoken comparison. She meets others, but the unspoken comparison, don't bring the same presence. You didn't need attention to be noticed now. Every interaction she has reminds her of the rare energy you carried. That silent standard becomes hard to ignore. Here's what happens that she'll never say out loud. She starts comparing not because she wants to, but because your essence left a mark the way you listened, without interrupting the calm in your eyes when things got chaotic, the way you didn't try to impress, yet somehow always stood out. That's what lingers. She may laugh with someone new, but somewhere deep. Inside, she's measuring that man against you, and the scale tips differently. Now it's not about looks or wealth, it's the feeling, the grounded, composed energy you. She feels you in her growth brought into a room, and that's not something people can fake or replace. It's forged through quiet discipline, through the way a man carries himself when no one's watching. That's stoicism in motion. Not some cold detachment, but the kind of inner peace that makes others feel safe without even knowing why. And here's the thing. She may have thought you were too quiet or too calm back then, But now that stillness haunts her because it wasn't emptiness, it was depth. Now she finds herself surrounded by noise, surface level energy, and men who try too hard, and all of it reminds her what she let go. That's the power of a man who doesn't chase validation. You become the benchmark. Silently, you don't compete. You exist on a level that few even understand, let alone reach, and without ever needing to prove a thing. Your memory becomes the standard she uses without even realizing it. And maybe that's the part that hits her hardest, realizing that the man she once overlooked has now become the quiet measure of all that follows. That kind of presence doesn't fade with time. It deepens in hindsight. So take a moment to reflect on this when you hold your ground, when you lead with calm rather than chaos. You're not just different, you're unforgettable. That's the Stoic path. Let her compare. Let her see the difference. And if this message resonates with you, drop a comment below and share your thoughts, or simply write, I don't compete, I become the standard. Let's talk about it. Number 11. She feels you in her growth. Ironically, it's in her moments of reflection, healing, and self-discovery that she feels you most. Because you didn't just leave a relationship, you left a philosophy, a way of being. And now, even from a distance, that presence teaches her. She might be journaling one evening, trying to understand why certain things no longer feel fulfilling. Or maybe she's reading a book on emotional discipline, trying to regulate the same emotions you once carried with grace, and then it hits her. This is how he used to think, this is what he lived by, that calm. You embodied the way you responded instead of reacted, your ability to remain composed when everything was messy. It didn't go unnoticed. In fact, it left a blueprint. You see, Stoicism isn't something you preach. It's something you live, and you lived it in front of her. You were patient but not passive, grounded but not rigid, loving but not dependent. And now as she steps into her own journey of becoming your example, echoes through her growth. It challenges her, inspires her, even humbles her. She may never tell you this directly, but when she chooses silence over drama, stillness over chaos, reflection over blame, some part of her is reaching for the steadiness she once saw in you. That's the paradox. She thought she was losing you, but what she actually gained was a mirror, a reflection of how strength doesn't always raise its voice. Sometimes it just holds its ground. That's what Stoic men do. They plant roots even in the hearts of those who walk away, not to possess, not to manipulate, but to elevate, and long after the goodbye, that influence still speaks. Conclusion. So here we are at the quiet end of a loud journey. If you've made it this far, you already understand something. Most people never will. Silence isn't emptiness, it's presence without performance. And sometimes the most powerful message you'll ever send is the one wrapped in calm detachment, in steady self-respect, in unshakable discipline. Throughout this video, we've explored the ripple effect of your silence, the echo it leaves in her mind, the power shift it creates, the mystery it awakens, and most importantly, we've seen how a man who walks the Stoic path doesn't fade into the background. He becomes the standard others are quietly measured against. This wasn't about revenge, it wasn't about playing games, it's about transformation, about stepping back, not to disappear, but to evolve. Because the truth is, the man who lets go without losing himself becomes unforgettable. Not through words, not through noise, but through the peace he chooses to protect. So what's the takeaway? Your distance can teach more than your presence ever did. Your silence can spark more reflection than your explanations ever could. And your calm, it can shake someone's soul more than any confrontation. That's the Stoic truth. You didn't just walk away. You walked deeper into who you are now. I want to hear from you. What part of this video resonated most with you? Have you ever felt the shift when your silence began to speak for you? Drop your story in the comments. Or if this hit home just right, my silence leaves a mark. And if you found value here, do me a favor, hit the like button, subscribe. If you're walking this path with us, and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. There are more lessons waiting, more reminders of your power. So go ahead, watch the next video on screen, and keep becoming the man who doesn't chase attention, because his presence already speaks. Until next time, walk with calm, move with intent, and remember, silence when aligned with strength echoes forever.